You talk to your dog every single day. You say their name. You give them commands. You have full conversations with them like they are sitting right across from you. But here is what nobody ever stops to think about. Your dog understands way more of what you say than you realize. Not just the commands you trained them on. Not just sit and stay. They have been quietly building a vocabulary inside their head from the very first day they came into your life. Listening to everything, watching everything, connecting words to meanings without you ever formally teaching them a single one. Today, I am going to show you 10 words your dog already knows even though you never sat down and taught them. Some of these are going to make complete sense the moment I say them. Some are going to genuinely surprise you. And the last one reveals something about how dogs process human language that scientists only recently discovered, and it will completely change the way you think about your dog's intelligence. Stay until the end, because that last one nobody sees coming. Let's get into it. Word 1. Walk. Let's start here, because even though this one is the most well-known example on the entire list, most people do not understand the full depth of what is actually happening inside their dog the moment this word lands in their ears. The second you say walk, your dog does not just get excited in a surface-level behavioral way. Their entire physiological state shifts in an instant. Heart rate goes up. Dopamine floods their system. Every muscle in their body tenses with anticipation. They go from completely relaxed and still to a full-body expression of pure excitement in under 1 second flat. But here is what makes this genuinely fascinating. Most dogs learn the word walk without ever being formally trained on it even once. Nobody sits down with a puppy and runs drills pairing the word walk with the leash and the door. Dogs learn it entirely through natural repetition and association. You said the word, the leash appeared. The door opened, the outside happened. Over enough repetitions, the word alone became enough to fire the entire chain of expectation inside their brain without any physical cue needed at all. And dogs are so sharp about this that many owners eventually have to start spelling it out. W-A-L-K. And then after a while the dog figures that out too. Because they are always listening, always building connections, always one step ahead of what you think they can understand. Word 2. Their own name. This one sounds completely obvious right up until the moment you actually think about what it implies, and then it becomes one of the most interesting things on this list. Your dog knows their name, but not just as a generic attention sound, not just as a noise that means, look over here. They know it as a specific identifier that belongs to them personally and not to any other word or sound in their environment. Research has shown that dogs respond measurably differently to their own name compared to similar-sounding words and compared to the names of other dogs living in the same household. They have categorized their own name as something distinct, personal, and specifically theirs. Think about what that actually requires. To recognize your own name as yours specifically, to understand that this particular sound refers to you as an individual and not to the world in general, requires some level of understanding that you exist as a distinct individual, that there is a you that the name points to. Dogs are not just reacting to a familiar sound when they hear their name. They are recognizing themselves as the subject of that sound. The next time you say their name from across the room and they lift their head and look directly at you, understand what you are actually witnessing. That is not a reflex. That is recognition of self expressed through response. Word 3. No. No is one of the earliest words dogs learn, and they learn it with remarkable speed because it almost always arrives loaded with tone, body language, and immediate consequence, all hitting at exactly the same time. But what makes no genuinely interesting from a language perspective is that dogs do not just learn that no means stop what you are doing. They learn the graduated versions of it. They learn the difference between a casual, distracted no said without much energy and a sharp, serious no that means this situation is not a game right now. They read the emotional weight carried inside the word as much as the word itself. Research on dog cognition has shown that dogs are extraordinarily sensitive to the emotional content embedded in human vocal tone. They process the emotional information in your voice in the right hemisphere of their brain. the same hemisphere humans use to process emotional signals in speech. So when you say no, your dog is simultaneously processing the word itself and the emotional state behind it, and combining both streams of information to decide how seriously to respond. That is not simple conditioned response. That is layered communication being decoded in real time. Your dog is reading between the lines of what you say every single time. Word 4. Good boy or good girl. Whatever your specific praise phrase is, good boy, good girl, good dog. That phrase is one of the most powerful pieces of vocabulary in your dog's entire mental dictionary, and most owners have no idea just how deeply it actually lands every single time they use it. When a dog hears their specific praise phrase, the one that has been consistently paired with warmth and positive outcomes throughout their life, it does not just produce a behavioral response. It activates the reward centers of their brain in a way that is directly measurable. Brain imaging studies conducted on dogs using non-invasive scanning technology have shown that hearing verbal praise from their bonded owner produces genuine neurological reward activation. Real responses in real brain structures, not performance, not just excitement. Actual reward processing happening inside their head. What this means in practical terms is that your words of praise are a genuine reward for your dog, not just a nice sound, not just a signal that something good might follow. The words themselves produce something that feels good inside their brain when they come from you, and the bond matters here too. Dogs that have a strong attachment to their owner show stronger reward activation from that specific person's praise compared to praise from a stranger saying the exact same words. It is not just the phrase. It is the phrase coming from you. Your voice saying those words to your dog is one of the most neurologically rewarding experiences their brain can have. Word 5. Outside. Outside is a word that most owners never formally introduce to their dog, and yet almost every dog living in a home learns it entirely on their own through pure observation and environmental connection. You started saying it casually in passing. Want to go outside? Let's go outside. Time to go outside. And your dog sat there quietly absorbing it. They matched the word to the consistent pattern of events that always followed it. The door handle moving, fresh air hitting their nose, the yard or the street opening up in front of them, stimulation, freedom, and the richest collection of smells they encounter all day. What outside demonstrates beautifully is something fundamental about how dogs acquire language. They do not need formal training sessions to build vocabulary. They do not need structured repetition with reward schedules attached. They learn words the same way young children learn a large portion of their early vocabulary, through natural exposure to language used in context, through consistent pairing of sounds with real-world experiences, and through paying close and constant attention to the humans around them. Your dog has been quietly sitting in your home, building a working vocabulary of the words that matter to their daily life without you ever consciously teaching them a single one. They did all of it themselves just by paying attention to you. Word 6. Sit. Sit is the obvious trained command, but what the research surrounding it reveals is anything but obvious, and it fundamentally changes how you should think about the commands your dog knows. When researchers compared how dogs process formally trained commands like sit versus words they acquired naturally through experience, they found something that genuinely surprised the scientific community. Dogs showed remarkably similar patterns of brain activation for both types of words. The commands learned through deliberate training sessions and the words absorbed naturally through daily life were being processed in neurologically comparable ways. This was significant because it challenged the assumption that trained commands are just conditioned responses, simple stimulus to behavior chains with no real understanding in between. The brain activation data suggested instead that dogs process known words as meaningful linguistic units regardless of how they learned them. They are not just executing a programmed instruction when they hear sit. Something closer to actual word comprehension is happening. Your dog sitting when you say sit is not a machine running a script. It is a mind that knows what that word means, responding to the meaning. That distinction matters enormously for how we understand what dogs actually are. Word 7. Food or eat or dinner. Whatever specific word or phrase you use around mealtimes, your dog has it locked into their memory with an intensity and permanence that rivals almost anything else in their entire vocabulary. Food-related words are consistently among the very first words dogs learn in any household because food is the highest value subject in most dogs' lives, and anything linguistically connected to it gets learned fast and retained permanently. The word alone becomes so saturated with anticipation that dogs begin showing pre-meal excitement behaviors, pacing, circling, going to stand by their bowl, the instant the word reaches their ears, long before any physical cue like the food container appearing has happened. What is interesting from a language acquisition standpoint is how quickly dogs generalize their food vocabulary once the core word is established. They do not just learn one word, they learn the entire constellation of language that orbits the concept of food. Dinner, hungry, do you want some? Time to eat. Are you hungry? They map all of it because the stakes are high enough that their brain dedicates serious resources to covering every possible way that concept might be communicated. High stakes drive deep learning. That is true in dogs, and it is true in every learning system that has ever existed. Word 8. Car. Car is the word on this list that most cleanly reveals how dogs attach personal emotional meaning to vocabulary and why two dogs can know the exact same word and have completely opposite relationships with it. For dogs that love car rides, the word car produces a response almost identical to walk. Full body excitement, movement toward the door, barely containable energy. For dogs that associate car primarily with the vet or with experiences that caused anxiety, the word produces the complete opposite. Body lowering, tail dropping, eyes searching for an exit. The word itself carries zero inherent meaning. It is just a sound. But what your dog has attached to that sound, based entirely on their own personal history of experiences, transforms it into something emotionally loaded and directionally specific. This is precisely how emotional vocabulary works in humans too. Words are never just their dictionary definitions. They carry the accumulated emotional weight of every experience you have ever had that was connected to them. Your dog does not just know the word car as a concept. They know what car means for them specifically, based on their life, based on what has happened to them when that word appeared. That is personal, emotional vocabulary, and it is a deeply sophisticated relationship with language. Word 9. Stay. Stay is one of the most cognitively demanding words in your dog's entire vocabulary, and it receives almost none of the credit it deserves for what it actually requires from them at a neurological level. Most people think of stay as a straightforward command. Stop moving and hold your position. Simple. But think carefully about what genuinely understanding and executing stay requires from a dog's brain. It requires them to hold a verbal instruction active in their working memory across an extended and open-ended period of time with no defined endpoint. It requires them to understand not just what to do, but what specifically not to do against every impulse and distraction the environment throws at them. It requires real impulse control, suppressing the instinct to follow you, to investigate movement, to respond to sounds, in favor of a word that has no physical enforcement mechanism once you have walked away from them. The ability to hold a rule in mind and apply it consistently across changing circumstances and competing impulses is a marker of executive function. It is a cognitively advanced capability that not all animals possess. Dogs that execute stay reliably are demonstrating genuine mental discipline in response to language. That deserves far more recognition than it gets. Word 10. Okay, this is the last one. This is the one nobody sees coming, and this is the one that changes everything. Okay is not a trained command. It is not something anyone formally teaches their dog. Nobody pairs the word okay with a treat and runs repetition drills. And yet, the vast majority of dogs who have spent significant time living with humans come to understand that okay functions as a release, a green light, permission to move. We are done here, you can go. Dogs learn okay purely through observation of human communication patterns. They watched it being used consistently as a signal that something was resolved or completed or approved. They notice that OK reliably preceded movement, action, or the end of a period of stillness and waiting, and they integrated it into their working understanding of human language without a single person ever pointing it out or explaining it to them. But here is where the science steps in and makes this genuinely extraordinary. When researchers studied how dogs neurologically process human speech, they discovered that dogs use both hemispheres of their brain simultaneously when listening to their owners talk. The left hemisphere processes the actual words, the linguistic content, the specific sounds that carry meaning. The right hemisphere processes the emotional tone, how the words are being said, what feeling is behind them. And critically, both streams of information are integrated together to form the complete understanding of what is being communicated. This is the same fundamental architecture that the human brain uses to process spoken language. Your dog is not reacting to sounds. They are not running pattern matching on audio input. They are processing the words you speak to them using a neurological framework that parallels human language processing in its most basic and essential structure. Left side for what you said, right side for how you said it. Both sides working together in real time to understand what you actually mean. That is not a simple animal responding to noise. That is a living mind that evolved specifically to understand you. A brain shaped over thousands of years of living alongside humans to bridge the gap between two species and make genuine communication possible. Every word you say around your dog lands somewhere. It gets filed, connected to experience, weighted with emotion, and stored in a mind that is paying far closer attention to your language than you have ever given it credit for. They have been listening to everything this whole time. All of it. Share this with someone who has a dog because most people are living with a far more linguistically aware animal than they ever realized, and understanding that changes the entire relationship. Drop a comment below and tell me a word your dog knows that is not on this list. I read every single one and I genuinely want to know. Like and subscribe because we have so much more coming for every person out there who loves their dog the way they deserve to be loved. See you in the next one.